Okay, welcome back to Swift Part 3. I know Part 2 was too long. I should have split that into multiple sessions, and I apologize. That was my fault. If you have questions on Part 2, please contact me. So now we're going to get into Part 3 of talking about Swift. This will be a little bit shorter. Again, same disclaimer I always put out. So we talked about Swift. We said it's a physical network. It's a highly secure network. It's a participants-only network, so you have to be a member or participant to join. And it has very special, unique security encryption, anti-tampering, high security hardware to connect to the network, and specialized software that uses the special Swift messaging protocols. And then we also talked about the format. So you have this network and you want to connect to it, right? So how do banks, institutions connect to the Swift network? Okay, there's software that's needed in order to connect to the Swift network. It isn't like an open network. It isn't like connecting to a regular wide area network or any private network. It requires highly specialized software that maintains the integrity of the messages and handles the encryption and all the security pieces. So there are various vendors that sell software that lets you connect or adapts to connect to the network. And there's also vendors that sell message formatting, Volante being one of them I mentioned earlier, and Oracle. Most of the big middleware ETL vendors have Swift adapters, but those Swift adapters that let you connect, that let you process Swift formatted messages, that's different than the network connectivity piece. And that's a separate piece of software. Now, it used to be, I think there was a company Mint, and there was a company Merva, which was an IBM product for the mainframe, and there used to be a bunch of different vendors selling connections, adapters to connect your systems to the Swift network. But over the years, there's been fewer and fewer of those because it's difficult to do, it's hard to maintain. And Swift themselves went into the business of selling software to provide this. So basically, it was very tough for vendors to compete with Swift. Swift will sell you an adapter to connect to the network, or you can buy a third party. Well, most institutions are going to opt for the safe bet, which is to buy the connection software from Swift. And their product is called Alliance. But just to explain this again, you got the Swift network, and you have your computers, and you want your systems to connect to the Swift network. You have to get communication software that will handle all the key encryption and all the Swift-specific protocol things for their messages to be processed correctly with the Swift network. You also need hardware for this. So you need to get that, and with that software, you can connect your applications, your systems, your networks to the Swift network. Most people will buy that connectivity software from Swift. So again, Swift has a family of products called Alliance. There are other vendors out there that sell adapters, but for the purpose of this conversation, I'm only really going to talk about Alliance. Alliance is the family of connectors that's sold by Swift. And the advantage of using Alliance is because it comes from Swift and it's supported by Swift, you know it's going to work with the Swift network. So it's in some ways it's a little bit like a monopoly, but it basically is it's a good solution too, by the way. And they have versions that run on different platforms. Okay, so the premier solution for connecting to the Swift network is a family of products from Swift called Alliance. And there are various types of the Swift Alliance connections. There's Swift Alliance Access, there's Swift Alliance Gateway, There's Swift Alliance Lite, Swift Alliance Entry, Swift Alliance Web Platform, Swift Alliance Message Hub. And there are, each of these products operates differently, and they're geared towards a different environment. Like, so let's say you're a bank in Bangladesh, and you only want to have one Windows platform, you only want one access point for Swift, and you want to be able not only to send Swift message, Swift network, you want to be able to key in directly into that thing. Then maybe Swift Lite or Swift Entry, Alliance Entry, those are the type of products you're going to be using. But mostly for institutional firms, they're going to be using things like Swift Alliance Access or Swift Alliance Gateway, because they want things that are going to be used to connect their systems to the Swift network. So they're not looking for a one-off solution for our clerks to use to manually type things in. They've got their own systems to do that. They're looking for something that's going to be able to be configured to support connections to multiple of their firm's many systems, and do message routing. One of the other things I should mention is, if you send a message to the Swift network, earlier I mentioned that the person who pays for a message is the sender. Now, if you send a message to the Swift network and it's been formatted incorrectly, and the message gets rejected by the Swift network, you have to pay for that message. You have to pay for an incorrectly formatted message. So one of the advantages of these software products, like Alliance Access and I think Alliance Gateway too, is before they try to send a message to the network, they validate that the message is correctly formatted, the mandatory tags are there, everything is structured correctly in the message. So it avoids the unnecessary cost of bad messages. So they do message validation. So that's a really important piece of the puzzle. Really quick, I'm going to talk about the Swift Alliance family of products. Basically, we got Alliance Access. Alliance Access is a great product. Does a lot of different things. Does the validation, handles the communication. It can be network connected via either a file interface or an MQ interface into your existing systems. Then there's Swift Alliance Gateway. That really is just a gateway application. You're going to have to use your own systems for the messaging. So all the messaging, message routing, all the messaging work you're going to do in your own systems. And then Swift Alliance Entry, that's the low-end solution from Swift. It's a desktop solution that lets desktops tie into the Swift network, and they have to tie through their own software. So again, Swift Alliance Access, this is the model you see for Swift Alliance Access, where you got people working on the, and by the way, this came right off the Swift website. So you go to the Swift website and you look up Alliance Access and you'll see the same slide. And it basically shows Swift Alliance Access being used over a VPN to access the Swift network. It's really, it's a good solution for like global investment management firms and banks and brokerage companies. Swift Alliance Gateway, again, that's a separate application. That application does the gateway functions and handles just the network connectivity adapters. I mentioned that the costs are dependent upon how many messages you do. You pay for every message you send. You not only pay for successful messages and pay for failed messages, but if you're doing testing in the Swift test environment, you have to pay for your test messages too. The sender pays for the messages, and the charges are based on volumes. And that's really the end of section 3, talking about the adapter to connect the Swift network. I know section 2 was a little bit too long, and if I get a chance to redo this, I'll restructure this into 4 parts and not just 3, or I'll split it up and have more in section 3. So contact me if you have any questions, and thank you for your time. Bye.